Ladies and gentlemen, this is Life Beyond 6 Feet. I'm Damien from Spooky South 507, and this week I have another past guest joining the show from Season 1, Episode 1, my very first guest when I started the show, Mr. Eric Freeman Sims. Eric, welcome back to Life Beyond 6 Feet.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And this is actually your third appearance now on the show because not only were you my first guest, you were part of the very first paranormal roundtable I did at the end of season 1. So this is your third appearance on the show. So when we first chatted, you were just premiering season 3 of the Unseen Paranormal Podcast, and now you're a few episodes into season 5. So how's the show been going over the last couple of years?
It's been going really well. Just growing and growing and growing. I mean, every day new listeners and new people joining the Facebook group and and following the page and following me, and yeah, it's going really well. Couldn't ask for more. Just I'm well over 150,000 downloads, and so it's just
Oh,
amazing. So can't
that's
complain.
that's awesome. So how many episodes do you think you're up to now?
This week will be 165.
Oh man, I got a ways to catch up yet. So
Yeah, that's about. I've had some repeat guests, so I figured it's probably about 150 guests.
right.
So
And
yeah.
so who are some people you've had on since the last time we've chatted? Anybody that people may know, or some relatively unknown people? Who's some of your past guests over the last couple of seasons?
I started out this fifth season with Jim Harold, who, if anybody's big paranormal podcast fans, he has the Paranormal Podcast. That's the name of his first show. He's been doing it for 17 years, and
Wow.
he's one of the original paranormal podcasters. He also does Jim Harold's Campfires, which is really popular. So I had the pleasure of talking to him, which was really cool. Yeah, let's see, I've had so many really good people. I just had Stevie from Truth or Demons podcast
Hmm.
talking about debunking the Warrens and talking about the truth about the Warrens, the actual truth that she's not our opinions, but actually things that she has gone and researched about the Warrens. And
Right.
she's watched countless hours of interviews and things. And so that was a great conversation. Last season had some great guests. Dr. Callum Cooper, who's a parapsychologist from Canada, who's a great guy, very smart, smarter than I ever will be. He teaches in England, actually teaches parapsychology
Oh
in
wow.
England. Yeah, and at a big university there. But part of the Center for Psychical Research, Society for Psychical Research in England as well. Great guests. But yeah, just talked to all kind of cool people. There was a gentleman, Steve Causey, that I talked to about the Land Between the Lakes massacre. And
Mm.
he wrote a book about back in the 80s, a family got supposedly massacred by a dog man in Land Between the Lakes. And he was a really interesting guest and very, very good to talk to. And I wasn't familiar until a couple of years ago with that there actually was dogmen in Tennessee. I guess you always hear
Hmm.
about them everywhere else,
Right.
and then I started hearing a couple of years ago about Land Between the Lakes being a huge hotspot for dogmen, and all these researchers are there researching it now. And so, pretty interesting topic. And to come back to Tennessee, our home state, and
Right.
always talking about Tennessee. Um, for this new season, I just recorded with a gentleman who knows all about the cryptids and folklore and urban legends and things of the Appalachians. So just recorded with him. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, lots of different guests and just trying to keep it different.
Right.
Had some repeat guests as well because they've had new books with new topics and things come out.
Hmm.
The end of the fourth season, I had a couple on who I haven't really approached the subject of. I haven't done aliens a whole lot because I don't want to do the tinfoil hat conspiracy
Right.
theory stuff.
Hmm.
And so I found this couple that wrote a book, and it's the season 4 finale, and they were just great about who they think the UAPs are and why they're here. And they had a very well educated argument for abductions and things that are really going on, and so they were just great guests to approach that subject finally, and especially with the abduction stuff and the
Hmm.
stories about the things that they went through. They're very believable witnesses about the guy had been his family has been kind of abducted, a lot of them throughout his lineage. It's kind
Hmm.
of a curse of his family, but Yeah, great people to talk to, especially on that subject, because I'm always looking for people who are educated and have a good, whether I agree with them or not, but they have a good, well thought out, well researched argument for what they believe in, and their stories are believable and they're credible.
Right. Well, it sounds like you've had a wide range of different people to chat with over these last couple of seasons, and I may have to dip into some of your guests. I think I've done that a couple of times. Like, yeah, that's person sounds pretty cool. I'm gonna reach out to them. So, and again, over the last couple of years since we had that very first conversation on the show, you've helped put together a couple of paranormal conventions, which I was a part of the very first one. So, how did that kind of come about when you guys decided to do that?
So the first one a couple of years ago in Lebanon was kind of small, and I came in like 2 weeks before it was going to happen.
Hmm.
Kind of some other people that were helping, it kind of fell apart. And then I come in being friends with Regina from PPF
Hmm.
Investigations and Lee from Medics for Paranormal. They asked me to step in because they knew that I had lots of experience with events because I was a wedding DJ for 20 years
Oh wow,
and things like that. So
I didn't even know that.
yeah, yeah, I've DJed over 250 weddings, but
Dang.
and various other events. But since I had the knowledge and kind of the know-how, and also the the phone book of guests, especially
Hmm.
Tennessee guests, to get to come
Right.
and speak and things like that. So I jumped in and helped them kind of save that from being canceled. And then we decided last year, I said, well, screw it, we're going to go big or go home. So
Right.
we went big and did the Tennessee Haunts and Legends Expo at the National Fairgrounds, and that was a lot of fun. Had great speakers come out all day and had lots of vendors and things, and it was a blast. It took us about 8 months to plan it, and so that's why we're
Yeah.
not doing it this year. It may
Right.
happen next year, but it
Right.
kind of dominated our lives for quite a while. So
I'm
it was a big
sure.
undertaking.
Yeah, and then I didn't get to join the one last year because at that point my team had pretty much done dwindled down to me and my wife, and I'm like, it's like I want to do it, but it's not really much of a team right now. And
Yeah,
so as you can tell by the background, I've kind of revamped my team. I'm trying to find a few new members. I've got one new member, other than my wife, but maybe if y'all put it together next year, Spooky South can be part of that. So
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and I know we've chatted before. I don't know if we talked about it during the first talk we had, but I remember you mentioning something about a book. Is that still happening? Are you still writing that? What's going on with that?
Well, it's kind of been put on hold. It's about half written. I kind of put it on hold because I bought a haunted location,
Hmm.
bought a historic house, and just busy with other things. Like got into documentary filmmaking with Strangely Haunted, and that kind of blew up really quickly on YouTube, and we weren't expecting it to have to do as
Right.
well for these two small episodes. So just been busy with other things, and the book will eventually be finished when I have the time to do it. Probably once we get the night house up and running, and I have
Right.
some downtime.
Hmm.
While the teams are in there, I'll be there in my office, and I'll have some downtime to actually work on it. But
Well,
yeah, it'll happen at some point. Hopefully by the end of this year, I
awesome.
can have
I'm
it out.
definitely looking forward to that. It's like I said, I remembered you had mentioned it before, and I knew I hadn't seen you say anything about it for a while, so I was just curious about that. So, strangely haunted. You mentioned that just a second ago.
Yeah,
Like you said, that first episode really just kind of exploded like overnight. Like I
yeah.
remember when you posted the first episode, I don't think I got to actually check on it until like the next day, and it was quite a lot of views in like 24 hours. I was like, man. So how did that come about with you and Austin?
We met a few years ago and just kind of became fast friends. And kind of a lot of the same views on the paranormal and also on how to investigate. We're both also very skeptical
Hmm.
to begin with, and I've always called myself a skeptical believer. I do believe in the paranormal. I've had plenty of experiences, and I've had crazy shit happen to me that you probably
Right.
wouldn't even believe. And I have seen things that are unbelievable. But I try to be a skeptic first, especially with evidence and things, because if I scrutinize it as much as I can before I put it out there, then it's harder for other people to debunk it. You know what I'm saying? If
Hmm.
I've already tried to debunk it myself.
Right.
And so I will never put anything out that there's any explanation for.
Hmm.
And so, but me and him are very like minded in that, and so we wanted to do a different type of paranormal documentary than you see mostly on YouTube. There's also a lot of fakers going on, a lot of faking stuff going on YouTube, and then people
Yeah.
have been caught lately. A lot of the big YouTubers have been caught faking stuff, and so we just wanted to put it out there. And this is investigating. This is what we do,
Hmm.
and what you see on film is what you get. And me and Austin have a certain chemistry between us because we're alike, but we're very much different people at the same time.
Right.
He's a bit more introverted. I'm a bit more extroverted, and so it just makes for a good dynamic. But the first time we ever investigated together was the very first film at the Commodore Hotel.
Oh,
We had
wow.
talked about investigating, but we had never investigated together, and it just kind of worked really, really well. And we put out the Commodore Hotel. It exploded way beyond. I mean, it didn't go viral or anything. It's not millions of downloads, but I think it's at like 12,000 downloads.
Right.
And then we put out the second one, and it did the same thing. So I think that channel's just with those two videos and a few shorts up there. I think it's at like 30 something thousand downloads, 30 something thousand views. And so then we decided because we're both really busy, and Austin lives in Ohio, 6 hours from me.
Hmm.
So for us to get together, it takes a lot of planning
Right.
and things. Because our schedules are both so busy. So we decided to go to more long form documentary. So Brushy Mountain, we've already filmed it. It's being edited, but we have the trailer out. Austin put a great trailer together,
Hmm.
put it out there. So that'll be the next one coming out. But it'll be a long form, probably over an hour long.
Oh,
And we're gonna
wow.
try to get it out through like probably through Amazon Prime and things for a couple dollars to rent.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, just to help raise money to pay for production expenses and things. It's just me and him, and all the equipment we've bought. Austin's bought most of like the filming equipment and things, but we both put a lot of money into microphones and making the best production possible so it looks very professional. Both of us already come into it having a good know-how to video edit, audio edit, sound design, things like that, just from previous things that we've done throughout life. And so it just kind of works. He is actually doing some stuff on his own right now. And then we'll be back to filming later on this year for another documentary.
That's cool. So, without giving away too much, because I'd rather direct people to watch the videos and stuff. What's
Yeah.
a couple of little interesting things that happened during those two investigations at the Commodore and at Brushy Mountain?
So the Commodore was interesting. We didn't even know it had never been officially like investigated. It's a hotel in Linden, Tennessee, and it had never been officially like investigated as far as we know. And
Mm-hmm.
so there wasn't a whole lot of claims that could go off of. And also, until the new owners bought it in like 2007, there's not a lot of history on the building either.
Wow.
And so it was opened. I believe it's been a little while since it did Commodore. That was back at the first of this year, but it was built in 1939 and opened, and the owner he owned it until and it wasn't called the Commodore. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but he owned it until he died in 1956. And then I guess I don't know if he didn't have any family or anything. It was hard to find any information on him. Any family or anything, or his family didn't want to run it, so the building kind of sat empty. It became a Western auto parts store in the late 50s through like the 70s, 80s, and then kind of just sat vacant for about 20 something years until the new owners come in and they made it this boutique hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretty much, these two people, they weren't expecting to open a hotel. They were going to come in and rent. They bought the building for pennies on the dollar, very cheap because it's just sitting there vacant. So they thought we'll come in and we'll renovate it and then we'll sell it to somebody who knows how to run hotels
Right.
because they're flippers, they're renovators. That's what they do. Well, they liked Linden so much they actually opened it as a hotel after they got it done and kind of revitalized the whole downtown of Linden, Tennessee. And so now Linden is a destination for the Buffalo River now to go canoeing and kayaking and stuff in the summer and hiking and things like that. And so they've never really had anybody in there to investigate. The owners have had things happen, and we even talked to their son who kind of runs it now. And he said, you hear furniture moving and things like that upstairs, but he's like, not anything crazy because most of the time there's people in the hotel for one,
Right.
and we kind of went on their off season, so there were a couple other rooms that were occupied, so we couldn't. we didn't have free roam of the place, not upstairs anyway. But it was interesting going in completely blind because normally we don't, you know. Normally we have some sort of history. We've got a, at least if it's like a bed and breakfast, the owners have like the patrons writing in a journal or something. They had this happen to them. A lady was at the foot of the bed, something. We didn't have any of that, so it was interesting going in blind and filming a documentary at the same time, not knowing if we're going to catch anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not that we're ever guaranteed to have anything happen, but most investigations you'll have at least some things happen. At least a good EVP or something here and there. And we got really lucky that there was quite a few weird things that happened. Um, One of the things that happened that I've never seen before, and the only thing that we could call is a ghost flame. And in the kitchen, we have a static camera set up on the table pointing toward the kitchen, and what looks like fire, it comes up in the stainless steel, and we're actually debunking the swinging door opening by itself. So we're over here to the side, and we tried to recreate it when cars were coming by and everything. We tried to explain it on film when there was different cars coming from different ways that was just headlight shine, but we never saw it again. It wasn't on film again, but it looked like flames coming up, and that was interesting for sure. But yeah, it kind of seemed like at the Commodore, it was one of those locations where any spirits that were there were kind of on the periphery,
Mm-hmm.
kind of keeping their distance from us.
Right.
We were hearing things in the kitchen when we were sitting at the back of the cafe. When we were in the speakeasy, you were seeing shadows out the door that goes into the lobby. We were hearing noises in the back of the speakeasy. And it wasn't it was built in 1939, but they put a bar in and they called it the speakeasy, even though the building wasn't even there during Prohibition. But yeah, lots of things happening on the periphery, and we heard the noises upstairs. It sounded like furniture moving in the middle of the night, about 3 o'clock.
Huh.
And yeah, and couldn't explain those. But also, there's other people in the building, so
Right.
um, couldn't say that was paranormal or not. There are a few times where we got some like music tones that were really weird out of
Hmm.
nowhere. Um, Caught a few voices. So yeah, to go in blind to a place and to just say, screw it, we're going to film a documentary too. We don't know if we're going to catch
Right.
it or if it'll ever see the light of day, but here it is.
Right.
So it turned out to be a pretty good night.
No, that's awesome. And the spirits are, you said they could be kind of shy because, like you said, nobody's ever, to your knowledge, ever tried to really reach out to them, so they're
Yeah.
not really used to that. So, I mean, it's awesome that you captured some stuff, whether at a distance or right in your face. That's still awesome to capture something at a place that hasn't really been investigated. So what are
Yeah.
some? And I know you said you went to Brushy Mountain. That was your first time there, right?
That was my second time there.
Okay.
I went back in November last year for the first time. And so I decided to put together a trip because Lee and Regina and a bunch of my friends had never been there. I
Mm-hmm.
was the only one out of kind of our close group who had been, and so we set up a trip and we all split it because Brushy is expensive. It's like seventeen
It
hundred
is.
bucks,
Yeah.
and so we luckily found enough people that it was like $100 something a piece. I think $145 a piece, and we went out there and rented a hotel room in Harriman. Yeah, me and Austin kind of went off into our own thing with filming. Man, we had some incredible things happen. The second film that we did was at Old Stone Jail in Franklin, Kentucky.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was the second short form we did, and we had a lot happen there. That was interesting place to investigate, especially when we split up. We had a lot happen. Um, but yeah, Brushy, man, that place is insane. Anybody that's never been there, like, find a way to go. Get a group of 10 people to go. I don't think you can have more than 10 people, but you can, you can work it out to where it's affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And that's for the complete overnight to where you're there like
yeah,
4 or 5 in the morning. And I know when I went, they had a cheaper option where you're only there for like 5 or 6 hours. Um, and how even when we went for that amount of time, we had so much stuff going on, it was unreal, and we had nothing to
yeah,
document with but a digital recorder. It's just those
yeah.
personal experiences, and that's a place I've been wanting to go back to. My wife really wants to go, and so hopefully we can get back up there. So, what was some interesting stuff that happened at the Old Stone Jail?
The Old Stone Jail. There's I've investigated there many times, and
Mm-hmm.
I've done many public events at the Old Sun Jail.
Right.
I love Billy and Elizabeth and all them up there with Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. They're all awesome, and Billy's the also the director of the museum, and
Mm-hmm.
just a great group of people. And for anybody that I know, you have we never put out the museum part of the documentary part of episode. We just did the jail. We
Mm-hmm.
filmed the museum, but nothing really happened. That
Yeah.
was anything. So we decided not to waste our time editing it. But in the jail, we had voices and knocks on command and things like that. Um, Upstairs, we caught upstairs in one of the rooms of the jailer's quarters that's hooked to the jail. There's this Confederate graffiti on the wall where they kept Confederate soldiers in there as prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a jail cell in there, and they have plexiglass over the graffiti to help save it. And it's really dominant. Like they drew faces and things. It's not just signed names, but they drew faces and things, and these cartoon faces and stuff. But we were up there asking about the Confederate soldiers, and we got quite a few EVPs that were pretty loud and clear. There are a couple times where we heard the voices in the room ourselves, between me and Austin, and yeah, it seemed to be. It was pretty active. It's a pretty interesting night. I mean, when you go in, especially to film when you're only filming one night,
Mm-hmm.
like TV shows typically they're at a location 3 or 4 nights filming.
Right.
So we're going in hoping that we catch something in
Right.
one night.
Right.
And so to even get a few good EVPs or we got a lot of footsteps
Mm-hmm.
that you can hear on there as well. And so to just get 1 or 2 pieces of evidence in the 30-45 minute episode that we put out is pretty good. But to have all that happen to us was yeah. And people like it's not that you're not going to get the Holy Grail, you're not going to get Shadow Figure or anything like that. But like I said, for us just to go in there for 8 hours and investigate,
Right.
yeah, I don't even think we
Yeah.
had 8 hours. I think we were there for 5.
Right.
And
I know I've been there a couple of times, and the first time we went, like it was like nothing was happening.
yeah,
And when we went back the second time, yeah, it was of course way more active, and we had a lot of uh, equipment interference and stuff, which was really interesting. I don't know if you've seen the couple little short clips that I put out. God, it's been probably over a year ago now, but we had Josh set up in one of the cells. He was handcuffed and all this stuff, and he was doing an Estes session, and you just hear this random clip of a song just play out of nowhere.
hmm,
And of course, everybody's phones is on airplane, and it was so short. We were all like, okay, if that was actually somebody's phone, it would have played probably longer because they would have had to pull their phone out, unlock it, pull up the app, turn the song off. This played for like half a second.
yeah.
The song, it said just a swinging. And what makes it
Oh
really
wow,
interesting is right before that, my wife had asked, who's up here or who's here, or something like that. And Josh comes through and says, boys. And right after that, it says just a swinging.
huh,
So we were like, well, maybe they're referencing, somebody that may have been hung somewhere or something like that. And it was really weird. And then a little while later, like after that session had ended, uh, like the spirit box we had was dead. So Josh was using necrophonic on his phone. I had the spirit box in my pocket this whole time. And while we're telling Josh, about that clip of that song, we start hearing the staticky part of the spirit box. I'm like, what the
hmm,
fuck, man? So I'll pull it out of my
yeah,
pocket and it's on. And we couldn't get it to work when we were getting ready to set up. Like the batteries were dead. I was like, well, I'm not going to go change batteries. We'll just use the necrophonic. And I'm sitting
yeah.
there holding the power button down. It like will not turn off. Like I can't get it to turn off. We eventually had to pull the batteries out just to get it to stop. And it was, like I said, it was in my pocket for
Wow,
45 minutes. And you'd figure
right,
with me moving around, if it was going to turn on, it probably should have done it while I was moving around and not just standing completely still.
right. And
It was,
you definitely would have heard it. I mean, this thing's That's
Right.
loud white noise. Yeah.
Right. It was really weird, but it was a fun night. And then it's there towards the end, like I don't remember what cell I was in, but I was doing an Estes session. And this is only the second time this has happened to me. Whoever was coming through and communicating, like, started affecting the way I was feeling. Like, I started
Yeah.
getting kind of antsy, and like I started tearing up. And they could tell something was going on, so they pulled me out of it. But like I didn't want to leave the cell. Like Josh basically had to pick me up and like carry me out because I was like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah, that's one of the only places I've ever been affected. And the interesting thing was, this is the last time. It was the last public ghost hunt we did there last year. And I was upstairs with five other people, where the nasty spirit Terry is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for anybody that doesn't know Old Sun Jail, upstairs in the Old Sun Jail, there's a nasty spirit. They think his name's Terry, and he likes to touch women inappropriately, even undoing their bras and things like that. I've heard that account from several independent women. Don't even know each other, so that's pretty interesting. But we were up there, and we don't provoke or anything, but we're trying to get him to talk to us. And I felt like I could not take a full breath, and I felt like somebody had like a hold of my spine, like from the inside, and like I couldn't completely inflate my lungs because someone was putting pressure on them. And so I told everybody, and we had a geoport, so a portal, where you have the reverb pedal and all that stuff with the spirit box going through it. So all you hear is the voices come through. You don't hear the switching of the radio stations. And so I told everybody that I was with, I was like, I need to go downstairs. Like I need to remove myself from the situation. And Elizabeth was up there, so I left all the people with her because she's an investigator with Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and so I left them with her. And my cousin was there. I go downstairs and go outside, and I'm out there kind of grounding myself, smoking a cigarette, just kind of chilling. And I feel better. Like within 2 or 3 minutes of being outside, I just feel fine. And I felt fine before then.
Mm-hmm.
So I go and get them because it was about time to end the night. And they told me that when I went downstairs and went outside, my cousin Brian said, "Why are you messing with my cousin?" And they said in a full sentence across the geoport, a voice said, "He started it first." Well, I've been there multiple times and I've never provoked him, but I think he's mad because I have a picture of what I think is his face.
Mm.
And it's this green face in the hallway up there. And there's no way
Wow.
I can explain it. I'm not saying it's him, but I think it's him. And I think he's mad because I caught him on film, is what it
Right.
is. And he said, yeah, he started it first. And then
Wow.
come to find out, I started talking to Lee because Lee was with a different group that night, leading a different group. And he had a similar experience when he was up there and had to remove himself from the building.
Wow.
And you don't compare notes to the end.
Right. Uh-oh.
Had there. Other than in the museum, we were getting ready for a public ghost hunt one night, and the upstairs used to be they used to make clothing up there, and there was a lady who kind of was the overseer, they believe, that still is there. Well, I was walking back toward the stairs and I heard a voice behind me, and it was just that feeling like I needed to hurry up and get back downstairs, but it felt like she was right behind me, and I couldn't tell what she said. But she was kind of shooing me out of her space, is what it felt like to me, because the hair in the back, and I kind of hurriedly went down the stairs because, we're all really brave when we're in the big group,
Right.
but when you're by yourself and something like that happens, you put a little giddy up in your step.
Right. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the night house. How did this whole thing come about? How did you find out about this property? How did you just, we'll talk about this place. So how did you find the place first?
It was kind of a whirlwind thing. One night, late night, I was talking to Austin, who I film with, on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scrolling through Facebook while we were talking. We were talking about filming and things like that. And just, Facebook suggests pages for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they suggested this page. I don't know why. Old houses, $50,000 and beyond.
Hmm.
Or $50,000, yeah, $50,000 and beyond. And then they have another one that's called Old Houses, $100,000 and beyond. So I went and started looking through these old houses, me and Austin had been throwing around the idea, hey, we start making money on YouTube, maybe just bullshitting a pipe dream, right?
Right.
We start making money on YouTube, maybe we can buy our own location, whatever. And this website popped up. So I went to the website and was looking through all the old houses that were for sale around the country and realized how cheap they were.
Mm-hmm.
The younger generation apparently wants nothing to do with an old house unless it's already fixed up and like
Right.
modernized or whatever. They don't want to put any work into it. So these older houses all around the country are going from insanely low prices. And the night house was on there. And so I thought, well, there's a certain criteria that I'd want because I don't want to leave my house where I live now
Right.
and move anywhere. And so I had a certain criteria. It had to be within 2 hours where we live, so it's easy to go travel, um,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Also, if the house has a name, it probably has a pretty good history. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And so I actually talked to my husband Roger because it's a big investment. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking cheap houses, but I'm talking cheaper than 300,000 or 400,000. I mean, you're talking about still $100,000 or
Mm-hmm.
more. On a lot of these older houses, especially the big ones like the night house. And I threw the idea to him, and he kind of rattled it around because he's the one that takes care of the money in
Mm-hmm.
our marriage, not me. I'm not good with money.
Right.
So he kind of rattled it around, and I showed him some of the houses and how cheap they were, and that it would be a good investment. And I kind of laid out my business plan to him, and he thought it was a good idea. And he said, "Well, let's just look around and see what we can find, what we can afford, that type of stuff." And the night house was the very first one we went looking at. It's one of those crazy things, and I've heard a lot of other location owners say this in interviews and things. But when we left there after looking at the property, we both were already talking like we already owned it.
Mm-hmm.
What we wanted to do to the house, all this other stuff, and so we both just kind of had that feeling. It was a very welcoming feeling coming into the house, like we were, like it was home.
Right.
And so that was in February of this year, and we said, well, we'll look at some other properties and see, um, our options and how much money we want to spend and things like that because we want to spend a certain amount on the house, but then still have enough left over to do any repairs or anything like that need to be
Right.
done. And so we put an offer, we gave them an offer, and they turned it down. And so we said, all right, well, we'll go look at some other houses, and we did, and we just kept coming back to the night house, and I just kept looking at pictures of it, and I even started diving into the history before there was even a guarantee that we were going to buy the place.
Right.
So come April, we were like, well, let's go back to the table and offer them, give them another offer. Well, they didn't like that offer either, so they denied it. Said, all right, that's fine. And we went to Indiana and looked at another house. Well, while we were up there for a 4-day weekend, the realtor for their realtor actually contacted our realtor and said, well, we have an offer to give to your client. Well, that normally doesn't happen. You normally don't have
Mm-hmm.
people selling come to you and say, here's a lower offer. We're going
Right.
to drop our price down. And so they were motivated to sell. So they dropped their price down and we haggled with them and got it down to what we thought was a fair price and bought it. And at the end of April, we signed the paperwork and been working on it for almost 4 months now to finish up the renovations that the previous owner was doing.
Mm-hmm.
They had actually moved out of the house in 2022. They bought it in 2014. They moved out of the house in 2022 and hadn't lived there since then. The guy that owned it, he's an engineer and he got a job offer from Disney in Anaheim, California,
Oh wow.
and that was his dream job. And he told us it was a choice between his dream job or dream house. And he said, I can always buy another dream house with the dream job.
Right.
So they moved out there. They took care of the house. They kept the power on and things like that. They didn't let it run down. But he didn't finish a lot of the projects, a lot of the things that needed to be finished. And so we've had to do that, which is fine. That's one of the reasons we got the house for a way cheaper price than what they were asking as well. And that's kind of was our talking points, like, well, we have to finish all the stuff you started.
Right.
Um, but as far as the inside of the house, most of it was done except for the what's going to be the new kitchen area and then the office area. which the office area, they ended up putting a wing on the house that goes from the dining room to what was the summer kitchen. So all these older houses had summer kitchens that were separate from the house. So in the summer, they'd cook out there and it didn't heat the house up. Also, if it caught on fire, it didn't burn the whole house down.
Right.
So the summer kitchen is now connected to the house. The summer kitchen will be our office, and then you walk through like a laundry room, mudroom area, and then through like a galley kitchen, long skinny kitchen, and then into the actual house structure itself. But it was built between 1815 and 1820. The house is over 200 years old. It is the oldest structure, standing structure in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and Christian County, Kentucky. So the entire county. It is in the top 15 oldest structures in Kentucky. So don't know who built it. Nobody's ever found a deed to say who built it. But whenever back then, if you built a house on your own land, that didn't generate a deed. You didn't need
Right.
a deed. You just built the house. It only generated a deed when it got sold to somebody else. But when it got sold to the next people, the original owner's name wasn't on the deed because there's no reason for their name to be on the deed. It's just a new owner.
Right.
So don't really know who built it. It was built in the federal style. It's a very flat, square brick house. It is an interestingly built house, though, that you don't see very often. It is it's what they call a split level or level and a half. The bottom windows that you see ground level, that's actually the basement. The first floor technically is you go up the front steps, the smaller porch on the front, and that's where the fancy parlor is, the foyer. Around the side, when you come in where the big columns are, the portico there, that was added at a later time, probably 1880s. And that's actually the ground level. So the house is 6 levels.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's very weirdly built. Until you go in to the house, like I did a tour video that I put up online, and it's still confusing until you actually go in the house and see the layout. The very bottom level is the cellar, and you're underground, and it's a huge cellar. And then you go up to the basement level. Then you go up to the ground level, which is where the basement has 2 rooms in it, and you have what would have been the winter kitchen. The winter hearth is in the basement. It's this big giant hearth that's deep that they would have had like the swinging pots that they cooked in the wintertime because they help heat the house. When you go up to the ground floor, you have 2 bedrooms. Then you have the dining room, a modern bathroom, and then that's where the kitchen and the summer kitchen come off of there, off the dining room. Excuse me. You go up another flight of steps, short flight of steps, and that's where you get to the parlor and the foyer for the front door. And the parlor is massive, but that's where they would have entertained, guests and things. And the Knights who owned it, it's called the Knight. We named it the Knight House. It was known as the Knight Rogers House. We decided to just call it the Knight House, and that's Knight, because they were there for almost 100 years. So their family is the predominant family and the predominant history there. But the house has been changed many times. So anyway, you go up to the parlor level, and you go up another weird set of pie-shaped steps that are very skinny and twist at the same time. So it's very like fun house effect as you go up them. And there's a guest suite up there that was turned into. There's a modern bathroom up there with like a living room and a bedroom. That was rented out in the 50s, 60s as an apartment. So there's a door that goes outside that used to have a deck out there that had stairs going down. And then you go up the final set of stairs. There's about 8 or 9 steps that go up to the attic. And the attic runs the full length of the house, but only half the house. Because the ceilings in the area that's the guest suite are up to the roof.
Right.
So and the ceiling and the house has 12-foot ceilings in it as well. So it's over 5,000 square feet. It's a massive house.
Oof.
Yeah. And you don't get the scale from the pictures either. There's one picture we took with me standing beside the big white columns on the side, and I'm 6 foot tall and I'm a big guy, and it dwarfs me. And that kind of made people understand how big the house is.
Right.
And it sits on almost 3 acres that we own. Yeah. And originally it sat on 300 acres. I have a map from 1878. Wow. Yeah, I have a map from 1878 that I had printed out that's hanging on the wall that shows the house and all the acreage that they owned back in 1878 when the Knight family owned it. As far as the history, there were several families that owned it for brief periods of time throughout the 1820s and 30s. There's some conjecture about when the Knight family bought it. Through all my history I'm going through, they've always said that the Knight family bought in 1860. I don't believe that. From all I'm looking at throughout the history and things, I believe the 1840s is when they bought it. Um, because there's not any other records of anybody else owning the house in the 1840s. And that is when the J.B. Knight and Eliza, his wife, started their family. Their first son was born in 1845, and they ended up having 7 kids. And they had them every couple of years after
Mm-hmm.
1845. So it wouldn't make sense that, okay, by 1860, all of their kids were born. So why would they buy a big house like that after they already had 7 kids?
Right.
For one, that doesn't make any sense to me. So it made sense that when they started their family, they were rich because J.B. Knight's father, R.B. Knight, he was a huge landowner, um, thousands of acres, and he died in the early 1840s. And he made J.B. the executor of his will, and J.B. inherited most of his wealth and inherited land all around Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. I mean, they had dealings everywhere. And JB was also an attorney in Hopkinsville, and he more so was a real estate magnate than an attorney. He bought and sold houses and things. And in 1830s, he owned a house in Elkton, Kentucky, that actually burned down, and he rebuilt it. And then I have paperwork where he resold it. But anyway, the history to me is pointing more towards the 1840s when they owned it, um, up until the very last descendant died in 1941 is when it was sold to the Rogers family, who, funnily enough, the entire Knight family, all the men were lawyers
Mm-hmm.
in the Knights. All the sons were 5 sons were all lawyers, and whether they practice law or not, they're still all lawyers. So then the Rogers family comes in and buys it um, in the late 1940s, and they're a family of lawyers.
Oh,
So the
wow.
majority of it's been owned by lawyers. And but the Rogers family lived there from the late 1940s until 2014,
Wow.
uh, and that's when the people we bought it from bought it. But extensive history. There are none of the original buildings are on the property. The only original structure that's left on the property that we know of so far is there's an outdoor cellar
Mm-hmm.
that is at least 6 foot deep, stacked stone, and we still haven't figured out what that's for. But there's
Huh.
also rumors of tunnels. And there is evidence in this stacked stone cellar that's completely detached from the house. It's about 50 feet from the house, inside underneath a shed.
Huh.
The floor, there used to be a floor in the shed and it's caved in now. We've got to clear that out where you can get down in there. But I've gone down in there and there's you have all the stacked stone, but in one area you have one flat, perfectly square stone that looks like it's covering up maybe a hole, like an entrance to a tunnel.
Hmm.
But a lot of people we've talked to, there's a tunnel there that's going from the house to there. And then on the other side of the house, there is a tunnel that supposedly went and came out across the road. And the road that runs in front of the Knight house has been there uh, probably since the early 1800s.
Right.
And so probably when the house was built, that road was there. And so there's a series of sinkholes that are in a line that would suggest a tunnel. So Billy from Old Stone Jail and Sims County Historical Society, we're going to have him come out because he does ground penetrating radar.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have him come out to see if we can prove these tunnels are there. As far as the long tunnel that went under the road and come out in the woods across the street, the only reason for that would have been an underground railroad.
Right.
Um, Hopkinsville was occupied by the Union and the Confederates back and forth during the Civil War, and the Knight House played a role for both of them. Um, there's evidence that the basement was used as a hospital, but not for wounded soldiers of the Confederacy, but for sick soldiers. There was a plague that kind of went through the ranks and it killed 300 Confederate soldiers in Hopkinsville.
Oof.
Yeah, and they used the Night House basement. They didn't have a formal hospital in Hopkinsville. It was one of those things where they had doctors, but they would come to your house,
Mm-hmm.
have a formal hospital, and so they treated a lot of those soldiers, and a lot of them died in the basement at the Night House.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and they use other houses too. But there's also some stories that I've heard where some generals and things from the Union stayed at the Night House because it would have been a prominent house and they were prominent members of the society. Um, So that would have been a place that the generals would want to stay. Also, with them owning so much land, it'd be easy for the Confederates and the Unions soldiers to camp out on their 300 acres, and
Right.
the generals, the important people, stay in the house. So, so much history with this house. It's insane. I'm just scratching the surface now.
Right.
Um, so much history with his family and things that they did. One of the sons was the in 1880s he became the president of the Western Kentucky Lunatic Asylum,
Oh.
which is only about 2 miles from the house down the street, and it's still in operation today. They call it Western State Hospital now, but it's still a mental institution to this day. And he was the president from 1883 until 1906. So they were a very prominent family. They were very rich. The house came with two books of letters, and I wish I had one here with me. Two photo albums full of original letters from the Knight family, original handwritten letters of all matter of business and things, and ledgers and things like where they would run a tab at the hardware store. And so for every dollar that they spent back then is equivalent to about $40 today with
Mm-hmm.
inflation. And they were dealing in thousands of dollars back then. So you're talking about 40, 50. I even have one where they were dealing with like three or $4,000. So you're talking about 100 grand
Oof.
in one transaction, one business deal. Um, yeah, JB Knight, he also owned a 3-story brick building in Chicago when the Great Fire happened in 1871 that burned down Chicago. You know, the one
Mm-hmm.
you always hear about, the cow kicked over the lantern or whatever.
Right.
He owned a 3-story tenant building, and he sent his second oldest son, who was an attorney, to Chicago. He was 25 at the time, and they called him John Jr. And he went up there to oversee the rebuilding of the building, because that made him a lot of money because they rented rooms out. This big 3-story tenant building, and he never came back from Chicago. He stayed up there, and he died in 1929. And he became a
Mm.
very prominent lawyer in Chicago with his law firm, and became a very big real estate magnate in Chicago as well. It was very well known. He's the only member of the family that I actually have pictures of that I
Huh.
found so far.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and JB Knight ended up dying in 1880, but his family continued to live in the house, like I said, until 1941. And yeah, his wife followed suit, I think, in 1887. And then two of their kids, Charlie and Ida, were both lifelong bachelors, a bachelorette. They're never married, never had kids. They lived in the house together. Charlie was the one that was the president of the mental institution, and he died in early 1920s, and then Ida died in 1938. And their youngest brother Thomas, he died in 1939, and the house was left to the oldest grandson, Leon Knight Harding, and he died in 1941.
Wow.
And the sad thing is, when he died, they opened the house up and auctioned every piece of furniture off in the house.
Oh.
So there's only one known original piece of furniture from the Knight family, and it's at the Historical Society.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. So that's the history. I could talk about the history for 2 more hours, but
Right.
brief rundown.
Now, how did you determine it was haunted? Like, had you heard before you bought it was haunted, or did you just kind of have that feeling? How did you figure out it was haunted?
It was just kind of that feeling when we walked in. Like I said, it's a very welcoming feeling, but it was also a feeling of you're being watched.
Mm-hmm.
But also, before we bought it, I had two dreams, very lucid dreams, where in the first one I was talking to JB and Eliza Knight, and we were actually me and Roger were sitting on the couch in the parlor. Well, when we went and looked at the house, there was no furniture in the parlor. All the furniture you see, we put in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we were sitting on the couch in the parlor talking to this man and this woman that was JB and Eliza Knight. And the woman did most of the talking, but it was very lucid. And I remember her telling us, we believe you're the right owners for this house to tell the history and to tell our story and keep our history alive. And so that was the first dream. The second dream I had was very lucid as well. And she was showing me around the house and telling me different things about the house. And that was when I was like, yeah, this is definitely the place for us.
Right.
Um, I've talked to other location owners as well. Like Ernie Pack was telling me, they own the Ditto House Inn up there in West Point, Kentucky. him and Denise, and from Pac-Man Paranormal, and he said they both had dreams about the house before they bought it.
Hmm.
And so just that feeling and things like that happening, and just weird synchronicities
Right.
happening before we even knew we were going to buy the house. And then from day one, the same day that we signed the paperwork at the lawyer's office, we got the keys and went over to the house about 4 o'clock that evening. And I went into the bathroom to use the bathroom, and somebody knocked on the door, just one knock on the bathroom door. And I said, I'll be out in a minute, because we were there. It was me and Roger and his parents and his aunt. His aunt was our
Mhm.
real estate agent. And we were showing them the house because they'd never seen it. And I come out thinking it was one of them needing to use the bathroom, and they're all the way across the house.
Mm.
So that was day one. Within the first hour in the house,
Wow.
we've had lots of things happen since then, to us and on video. There's a couple of videos up. I think I have 3 videos up now of
Hmm.
things that have been captured on the cameras. Um, but Memorial Day, me and Roger were in the house by ourselves, putting together beds, and we're in the bedroom on the ground floor. And from up in the parlor, we heard a woman's voice say an entire sentence, and we couldn't tell what she was saying, but she said 5 or 6 words in an entire sentence, and they echoed through the house. Um, Even Roger's parents, who aren't into the paranormal, but they're helping us
Hmm.
work on it because his dad is a master carpenter.
Hmm.
There's a crawl space in the basement, well, down in the parlor, that goes across the house for like all the plumbing and stuff. It's about 3 foot by 3 foot. And he was down there one day by himself working on plumbing, and he said he heard what sounded like it was coming from the basement or the cellar. A man and a woman having a conversation, but he
Mm.
couldn't tell what they were saying. So they've even heard things like that. We've heard footsteps. I've heard voices and footsteps when I've been in the house by myself. I The first time I spent the night there, we went and did kind of a mini investigation with my friend Sin Trader Hill,
Hmm.
EVP Paranormal. Her and her husband Greg came and spent the night, and some noises woke me up in the middle of the night. And then me and Austin investigated, and just me and him. He was sleeping in one bed in one room, and I'm in the other bedroom. And I heard what sounded like a door slam. That's what woke me up. It was that loud.
Wow.
And there's 2 doors that go in the bathroom. One comes from the foyer, and one comes from the bedroom I was sleeping in. So I thought Austin maybe accidentally slammed the door
Hmm.
when he was going into the bathroom. No, the door's open. He's in bed. And when I woke up, it sounded like shuffling in the room, like
Hmm.
somebody's moving around in the room. And I was just like, look, we investigated for 6 hours. You had your chance. Like, I'm going
Right.
back to sleep. But yeah, all kinds of things have happened since, excuse me. Also, the first time we talked to the neighbor next door, him and his wife have lived there for 30 years. And he refuses to go in the house.
Huh.
He's been told by many people, including the previous owners, about having experiences. And
Wow.
yeah, and so now we're known as the ghost people by the neighbors. They're really good neighbors. We did ask the previous owner at the closing. He flew in from California, and his wife didn't get to come with him for whatever reason. But we asked him about paranormal, and he told us very hesitantly that he didn't have any experiences, but his wife had. But it seemed like he did have experiences, you know what I'm saying? But he just didn't want
Hmm.
to talk about them. But he said his
Right.
wife did. So then the neighbor told us that apparently his wife had told the neighbors about a lot of experiences that she had had in
Mm.
the house, from seeing full body apparitions to all kinds of stuff. So
Wow.
the craziest things happened to me so far, and I think this is because they're getting comfortable with me.
Hmm.
When we come in to the house, when we go up there, we tell them hi. When we leave it to go to lunch, we tell them bye. When we leave for the night, we say, "Hey, we'll be back tomorrow." We talk to them like they're still, they're human,
Right.
and I think they're getting comfortable with me. So the other night, I was locking up when we were leaving, and when you go up the staircase, there's a landing before you go into the parlor, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a woman standing on the landing up there with her hands on the rail, looking down at me, and I knew not to turn too quickly because they tend to disappear when you do that. And so I watched her for about probably 5 or 10 seconds out of the corner of my eye. And when I turned, she disappeared. Of course, she wasn't there. But so they're kind of getting a little more bold, I guess. Um, Roger went to lock up the house the other night, and he shut the door in between the dining room and the kitchen area. because the kitchen area is not fully air conditioned yet. We haven't run all the ductwork and stuff yet. And so when he closed the door and turned around, he's walking through the dining room to leave, and he heard three knocks on the door, and he thought he had locked one of us in there because it was me and my brother and my brother's girlfriend were up there as well. And he opened the door, and when he opened the door, he could see us standing out in the yard through the window. So even they're even getting comfortable with him, and so
Wow.
lots of personal experiences, and then the videos that are up. The
Hmm.
one video of the mist that was the first thing I caught.
That one is wild.
That's a 5:30 in the afternoon with the sun shining.
Yeah, that one, when you posted that one, I was like, I watched it a few times and I'm just, because if I remember correctly, you said the cameras you have in there are motion activated, right?
Yeah, I've got them set up for motion and sound.
So it's only going to start recording when it detects motion. So I'm
Yeah,
like, that's really intriguing. I don't think I remember uh seeing what time of the day it was, but for it to be in the middle of the afternoon and
yeah,
to be that prominent, just kind of wiggle across and just kind of fade away. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's interesting. And then the one you
yeah,
shared just about a week ago of all of what sounds like a bunch of stuff being shuffled around and,
yeah.
and moving, that was really strange. And that was it. Uh, didn't you say that was the middle of the night? I think.
I think that was at 12:30 at night. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty wild. So.
The weird thing about the mist, real quick, it was in the middle of the day. Sun
Mhm.
is shining in the windows. The windows upstairs, no curtains on some of them. But the window shining in. Um, the beginning of where the video started to record, it was in color view because the cameras automatically switch to night vision, right?
Mhm.
When it gets dark. Well, it's in full color view because the sun's shining in. Right before the mist comes across the screen, it flips to night vision.
Hmm.
A minute or so after the mist goes across the screen, it flips back from night vision into color vision.
Huh.
So why did it do that?
Right.
Are
That's
they
a little
manipulating the
weird.
camera?
All right.
Yeah. And then the sounds, the video I just put up of all the sounds, that's the master bedroom downstairs. And that camera is it was on the mantle of the
Mhm.
fireplace. There's nothing behind it. There's nothing behind it to be moved or
Right.
anything off camera. The only thing that's behind it that would be behind it, kind of to the left of it, is a walk-in closet, but there's nothing in the walk-in closet.
Huh.
And so
That
there's nothing to be moved around, especially not that loud.
that's
Um,
crazy.
yeah. So yeah, some interesting videos, but those are up on my TikTok page, the Unseen Paranormal on TikTok, and then also the Night House on Facebook. Those videos
Mm.
are on there.
Right. And like I said, the one with the mist really, really got me. So what initially are your plans for the house other than obviously renovating it, which you guys have done a ton of work over these last few
Yeah.
months, and just to kind of watch the progression of everything you guys have done between, you know, putting new siding on to building like a porch to doing this and that and getting all the pieces put in there. Like y'all have done a lot of work over the last few months. So what's the ultimate payoff once you get this done? What's all the different plans you have for this place?
So 2 weekends out of the month, it'll be open for paranormal investigation for Friday and Saturday night. You got two price plans there. We're gonna do a half night, so 7 till 3 in the morning. If there's any local teams that don't want to, spend the night, um, for $500, and that includes a whole list of things that you won't find at other locations. I took a poll the other day. Me as an investigator renting locations kind of already had an idea of all
Mm-hmm.
the extras that I wanted to provide. I mean, we have high speed Wi-Fi. We're gonna have a fridge and a microwave for people to use. We'll have coffee. We'll have snacks available. We have beds. So when people, the other price point is to rent the house out for the whole night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the house is over 5,000 square feet on 3 acres. So you have plenty of places to investigate all night. There's plenty of other perks too in there. I'm going to do a packet with the history in there with names and things um, to give to every team. Just things like that, trying to go above and beyond so that you feel like you're getting your money's worth
Mm-hmm.
when you come in. The other price point will be from 7 at night until 9 the next morning, and that's $750. And that we have beds for everybody to sleep in. We have two working bathrooms and showers.
Nice.
We'll provide all of the linens, and the beds will be made with fresh linens and pillows, and we have towels and things if you need soap shampoo or anything, we have all that to provide as well. The only thing I can't do is serve meals.
Right.
Because you got to get the health department involved. They got to come in and inspect the kitchen. And then you got to have firewalls and all this other crap from codes. It's just way too expensive to deal with. So the only thing that I can provide is meals. But like I said, we'll have a fridge full of drinks, soft drinks and bottled water. We'll have coffee. We'll have snacks. The other thing that we'll have is a charging station. We'll have a base station with charging stations so people can charge all their batteries and things, and a place to come hang out in between, taking a break. So trying to do those as soon as we can when the house is ready, and jumping through all the hoops of the city as well to make sure business is legit and all that stuff. So that's what we're working on now. That is coming very close. Probably in August is when I'll open that all up. But like I said, every other Friday and Saturday, and every other weekends, just because I don't want to live up there on the weekends.
Right.
It's an hour and a half from our house, which is fine. But if I'm going up there on Friday for an investigation, and then Saturday investigation, I'm not coming home. There's no reason to come home, especially if they're both overnight until 9 in the morning. Yeah. So, but yeah, every other weekend, I still want to have a life too.
Right.
But that money will go directly back into the business to pay the bills, and to help us continue to remodel the place and fix the place up. And then ultimate goal in a few years, there's lots of things I want to do. But ultimate goal is to become a wedding venue, an event venue, and we'll build structure. We'll build a parking lot and build, event barn and things like that on the property. But just do all kinds of public ghost hunts there. I got a bunch of stuff I want to do for Halloween this year. It's twice a month. We're going to open it up free to the general public to come in and take history tours.
Wow.
With myself, I'll take people through the house and show them around and tell them the history. Yeah, so kind of the ultimate goal is not the paranormal. It's actually preserving the history of this house.
Right.
Because it is such a significant place in the community of Hopkinsville, with two significant families. And so that's my goal, is to share the history. The house has never been really shared with the community. The last owners didn't do it. They weren't planning on doing any of that. And like I said, I have 2 notebooks this thick full of original letters from the Knight family.
Wow.
You never get that. I'm talking handwritten letters from them to them. I have the original envelopes and things like that. I have JB Knight's original business card.
Wow.
A copy of it. Yeah, it's insane. The earliest letter in there that I found so far is 1830s.
Dang.
Yeah, it's awesome. I have a contract that the contractor wrote up to build the front porch. JB Knight had the front porch built. Cost him $110, including materials.
Right.
But yeah, the house is just fascinating. Lots of history there, and that is what excited me. It's not just the paranormal.
Right.
I want people to come in, and I think the spirits want to tell their story.
Right.
Like I said, the Knights have been kind of lost to history, but they were a very predominant family for a long time in the town. To the point that where they didn't have a family cemetery on the property. They're built at Riverside Cemetery, and that's where all the other prominent town people are buried. And but they don't have any headstones.
Wow.
Yeah, I think there's 6 family members buried there, and none of them had headstones. So I don't know. I'm gonna have Billy go out there with the GPR as well to see if the headstones have sunk, because sometimes they'll sink in the ground, especially in Kentucky. You got lots of sinkholes and caves and things. See if they've sunk in the ground and we can dig them up. If not, then I want to raise the money to put a big headstone there to commemorate the Knight family.
Right.
And the people that are buried there.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. So you have quite a bit of stuff you want to do with this place, and and like I said, it's been fun kind of watching what you've been doing so far, and I don't think it's been formally announced on this show, but it's been announced on my other show and the other shows involved.
Yeah.
My other podcast, Beer, Booze, and Boogeymen, myself, Kristen, Amanda, Gil, and Joey have all come. We're meeting for the very first time, and we're going to be doing it at the Night House. We had this idea about doing because we do the live stream show once a month. We've had this idea to do it from a haunted location for a few months now.
Yeah.
And during the last episode of Life Beyond 6 Feet, I was talking to Kristen. I was like, I still really want to do that. I was like, but it's going to be hard to find a place that's going to meet all of our needs.
You're right.
electricity, Wi-Fi, heat, air. It's going to be hard to find a location that's going to provide all of that. And my first initial thought, because I absolutely love it, I was like, Scott County Jail.
Yeah.
And when I reached out to Chris, she's like, well, we're fixing to get rid of the Wi-Fi, blah, blah, blah. She goes, even if we kept it, it only, with the way that the jail's built, it doesn't reach all the floors. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, okay.
Right. Right.
And then I thought, well, I was like, what about the Thomas House Hotel? I was like, we'd be able to sleep there. And I got on their website trying to figure out when they were doing the ghost hunt weekends, and we found a weekend. And I told the guys, I was like, look, I was like, we're gonna have to, either one, we have to hope like hell that nobody else is there during that weekend,
Right.
or we have to rent out every single room.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's going to be slim to none for either one of those to happen. I was like, I'll reach out to them. I was like, but I doubt they would let just us be there.
Right.
And then I was like, shit. I was like, I know somebody that actually just bought a place that everything, I was like, it's going to meet everything we need. I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of this place before. I was like, and I'm like, for me, it's only like an hour and 20 minutes away.
Right. Right.
And so we plan on doing that September 28th. As of this recording, we we had a GoFundMe, but apparently we broke their rules about offering perks and stuff, which I didn't realize that was against their rules.
Yeah.
So you can't, apparently on GoFundMe, you can't offer your donors anything but a thank you. So I'm like, okay, so hopefully as of this recording, when this comes out in a couple of weeks, we'll have our Kickstarter up and going,
Yeah.
which actually, encourages you to give back to your donors.
Right.
We have a whole list of tiers of some pretty amazing stuff we're going to be sharing with people that donate to help get us there. Because like I said, Kristen's coming all the way from Washington State. Gil and
Right.
Joey's driving over 8 or 9 hours from North Carolina. So we're trying to raise money for all of that to get us there. And the more important thing is for all of us to actually meet each other. Gil and Joey are really good friends, so they've met each other, but us collectively have never met in
Right.
person. And so when I told them about the night house, they're like, dude, that's perfect. I was like, we'll each have our own room to sleep if we decide to sleep, this and that. And our plan is to pretty much have cameras and mics in every room, even when we're not in there.
Yeah.
And people can kind of, when they're watching the investigation live, if something's going on in this room and we're on the other side, they could type in the chat, hey, there's something going on. Maybe somebody should go check it out.
Right.
It's going to be kind of like an RPG thing. They pretty much get to control what we do.
Yeah.
So at some point, they're like, hey, Damien, go to the basement for 30 minutes by yourself with only a flashlight. So I'm going to have to go down to the basement for 30 minutes with only a flashlight. So,
yeah.
And we plan on kind of documenting everything from the moment we leave our house to the moment we all meet. And that's going to be like extra perks for people to, if they donate so much, they can see all that stuff and behind the scenes and all the setup. And
yeah,
if it all comes together how we want to, it's going to be really fun for everybody involved, not just us. Because we want to give back to like all of our viewers of all of our different shows. And there's a lot of people that's always wanted to investigate, and this is a way for them to investigate without ever leaving home.
Right. And right in the middle of spooky season too.
Right. So
you're right at the end of September, 1st of October.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be really fun. And there's one tier that if anybody really wants to actually in person investigate with us, they would have to donate that amount of money. Of course, they would have to get themselves there, but they would actually get to be with us in person and investigate.
Right.
So we're offering that too, but it's going to be really fun. I know everybody's excited about it. We're constantly brainstorming, trying to think of ways to promote this and to get the word out. And unfortunately, we've had to kind of revamp a couple things because, like I said, now the GoFundMe's out the door, so now we're having to kind of incorporate other stuff. And
yeah,
it's going to be really fun. And we really appreciate you letting us do it there, and everything you've offered up for us, and it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I'm honored to have y'all, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun
And
to
and I've done several investigations, so they're going to be kind of looking at me for guidance because Gil and Joey's never been on an investigation. This would be Kristen's like sixth or seventh investigation, so she's still fairly new at it. So they're like, "You got to show us what to do." And I'm like, "Well, there's really no right or wrong way to really go about it." But
yeah.
I was like, I'll get you guys kind of set up, and I think
Well,
it's
and I'll
going to
tell
be really
you,
fun.
with the night house being such a fresh place, it's gonna be kind of an open canvas
And see, and that's what I
because
told him too. I
yeah,
was like, once we get in there, I was like, it's not gonna have been investigated too many times.
right,
I was like,
yeah,
so it's still gonna be kind of fresh and new to the spirits there too. I was like,
yeah.
so hopefully it'll be a really fun night for everybody involved.
Well, and hopefully I
So,
can have at least a few teams through there before, and I have an idea because I've investigated there twice
mhm,
already. Of course, it's my house, but hopefully we can have some other teams come through there before, and I can say, hey, this worked for them.
mhm,
The spirits were more into this or whatever,
right,
because it's what people don't understand, especially with a new location like that spirits have never really been recognized,
right,
right? They've just people have been afraid of them, and
mhm,
so they don't know how to use the equipment. They don't know how to. It's a learning thing, that with the same way we had to learn how to use a REM pod or
right,
whatever voice recorder, that type of stuff. So um, I've tried to help that along with the two investigations I've done. I will probably do another longer investigation before we open it up completely to other teams. But like I said, I mean things are happening all the time, so I don't think y'all have too much of a problem because, like I said, they're kind of antsy to tell their story, and I've kind of
right,
explained, hey, we're gonna have people coming in here to
right,
hear your story, and you'll have ample opportunity to to express that. That's one thing. Also, the reason I don't want to open it just wide open, to investigations and just have it every other weekend because I feel like that's more respectful to the spirits as well. It's
mhm,
not like every weekend it's like dance monkey dance, like a
right,
trained animal or something. They get a little bit of leeway too. It's
right,
only four teams a month at most. So,
right,
but yeah, I'm looking forward to y'all coming in. It's gonna be a lot of fun and it's gonna be interesting for me to be an observer.
right.
And I'll help y'all as much as you want me to
And
help you.
and
And
and I think we even talked about, because I told him I was like, I'm sure Eric or his husband want to probably stay there with us.
I'll be there. Yeah.
And because I had to explain to him, I was like, a lot of places somebody usually stays on site normally for like
Yeah.
insurance purposes and stuff, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's no problem. I was like, and by this time they're really going to know you. And I was like, if we're not really having a lot of luck, I was like, we can always bring him in to kind of say, hey guys, let's kind of I guess kind of stir them up, if you will, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's going to be fun, and we're really looking forward to it. And like I said, we appreciate everything you've done, the allowing us to come there and do this massive project
Yeah.
that we have on our hands. So,
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things that I didn't like about locations that I didn't want to do is I don't want to charge extra for people filming. I think that's
mm-hmm,
ridiculous because it's free advertisement for the house. Why am I
mm-hmm,
going to charge you extra when you're going out busting your ass to advertise?
right,
No matter if it's y'all doing a live stream or what y'all are doing, or if it's some big YouTuber that comes in.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, they're making money off of it, but why am I going to charge them more
right,
when they're just going to make the house more popular and more people are going to want to come?
mm-hmm,
So I don't agree with that. And then also I don't agree with some of the video policy stuff. Like I
mm-hmm,
understand some locations wanting a video policy. I can understand like some of the hospitals because there's still families in the communities that are connected to those hospitals. So I don't want people coming in saying demons, getting the history wrong, things like that.
yeah,
The night house is not as important. On the rule sheet, number one says there are no demons here. There are no
right,
skinwalkers on the property. Like, excuse me, but if somebody puts that out on a YouTube video and they want to trump it up to demons, whatever. It doesn't hurt the night house one way or the other. You know what I'm saying?
right,
So for me to be an asshole and say, okay, I'm gonna have this rule to where I have to before you can put your video out, I have to review it. No, that's ridiculous to me. Especially
yeah,
for a location like I own. It's a privately owned house. We're
mm-hmm,
not a nonprofit. It's not a museum. And that's
right,
another thing. Like just about every piece of furniture in the house you can actually use.
right,
And that's what I wanted to do as well. I didn't want a bunch of antiques. All the
Mm-hmm.
pieces look the part, but they're
Mm-hmm.
functional. You can sit on the couches and things. You don't have to sit on the floor unless you want
Right.
to, and
Right.
things like that. Yeah, yeah, I don't want to charge extra for filming. Nothing like now. If there's a film crew that wants to come in for 3 or 4 days, okay,
Right.
we'll work out a price. Or
Right.
if there's a big team that wants to do, I don't know, Friday and Saturday night, okay, we can work out a better price than
Right.
1,500 is what it would cost them, or
Right.
whatever. But yeah, and I'm reasonable like that. I'm not, you know, I'm not
Right.
gonna be like, no, you have to pay,
Yeah.
no. Um, but yeah, just trying to get the place. And I appreciate y'all because y'all are doing a lot of advertising as well.
hmm
And like I told you, any way that I can help out, let me know.
Like I said,
Um,
we're going to be, and even after the event's over,
yeah,
we're talking about this place like on this episode right here. This episode's not going to disappear.
right,
So
right,
in a year and a half, if somebody clicks on this episode, they're like, "Oh, that place sounds cool. Hell, that's right down the
yeah,
road. Let me go check this place out."
right,
So it's like almost like permanent promotion, I guess you could say, with all these different
yeah, yeah.
podcasts and stuff we're promoting this place on. So it's
It all plays into the Google SEO and
right.
the YouTube
So
SEO. So when people
right,
search engine optimization, that's what SEO is
hmm
for.
right,
And the more the name is out there, yeah, the more the people it pops up for people, and more people can find it easy.
right. So
So,
all right. So what other than continuing working on the house, what do you got coming up?
just more of season 5 of the Unseen Paranormal, and then like I said, getting the house going with the paranormal investigation stuff. And yeah, I mean the night house is it's a huge undertaking
Mm-hmm.
um, to take over a location and do all the things we want to do and continue to work on the house. We have about probably an acre of the property cleared right
Mm-hmm.
now that is accessible. There's still almost 2 acres that aren't that are wooded
Mm-hmm.
and that we need to and that area is where the original structures were for like the carriage house and things like that.
Right.
And so we want to at least get some paths put through there so you can walk in a big circle or something, until we can get a lot of more of it cleared off.
Right.
It's a lot of underbrush. We're not going to clear out like all the trees and things, but we want the underbrush kind of gone so you can kind of walk around and we can find out where the a lot of the original footprints of those buildings hopefully were as far as foundation stones and things like that. So we can mark those off and say, okay, we know this was probably a carriage house by the size of it. This was probably a smokehouse or whatever.
Right.
So things like that. But yeah, it's constant work. I mean, I have to go up there and mow every week and weed eat,
Right.
and it's a massive. We may have an acre and a half cleared off now,
Right.
but it's a massive place to mow and weed eat.
I bet.
It takes an entire day by myself to mow and weed eat everything, and then we're constantly weed eating more to gain more property.
Right.
It's like so. Yeah, and then finishing up the drywall in the office area in the summer kitchen because that's where I'll hang out when teams are in the house
Mm-hmm.
because I'm kind of completely separate from the house,
Right.
and that way I'm not bothering anybody, not making any noise to contaminate or anything like that. And I'm right there if anybody needs anything. And but yeah, just continue. We got to get the kitchen finished. Um, we've got insulation in there, and the plumbing and the electrical is all done. We just got to get drywall up there and get it wallpapered and things like that.
Right.
So the majority of the house is pretty good. It's just some of these other things that yeah didn't get done by the previous owner, just kind of left hanging there.
All right. So now, if people want to catch up on the Unseen Paranormal Podcast, how can they do that?
I'm anywhere and everywhere. I mean, I Google myself every once in a while, just not myself, but the show.
Right.
I Googled the show the other day, and the first 7 pages is the Unseen Paranormal Podcast at this point. So
Wow.
whether it's from me being on other people's shows or it's different episodes of the Unseen Paranormal, but yeah, Apple, Spotify, even on YouTube. I don't do video,
Mm-hmm.
but you can go listen to it on YouTube. All the episodes are on there. And I've started something new. Once the podcast host gets so full of episodes, because I have so many now, 165, it starts dropping off the older original episodes.
Hmm.
So the first like 7 original episodes of season 1, nobody can go back and listen to now.
Huh.
So twice a month on Thursdays, I'm going to do Throwback Thursdays. And last week, I just put out the very first episode I ever did with Alan Cersei. and did a Throwback Thursday. So every other week, I'll do a Throwback Thursday with one of those episodes. I've had people ask me, "Well, where's the original episode? I want to hear from the beginning,"
Right.
And so I'm going to start putting those episodes out, and they'll come out as they drop off. Because every time I put an episode out, it drops another episode off
Right.
at the beginning. So it was weird to go back and listen to the very first episode and see how far
Right.
I've come over the past 5 years in 5 seasons. So, but
Right.
got a lot more great guests in season 5 coming up that I've are already recorded, and I've got some that I've got scheduled to record. So excited about just a another plethora of paranormal topics and things like that, and talking about some new stuff we never talked about on the show before too. So
Awesome.
that and yeah, people can go on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X. Unseen
Right.
Paranormal's on all of those, LinkedIn as well. We also have the Unseen Paranormal Lounge where I do a lot of memes and things
Mm-hmm.
for the show. But yeah, go give it a like, subscribe on YouTube as well. And I put up the Night House videos, some of the Night House videos on YouTube on the
Mm-hmm.
Unseen Paranormal channel, the evidence videos. And then as far as the Night House goes, I have a Facebook page where I put a lot of photos up as we're doing things.
Mm-hmm.
People can go follow. It's been up for a month and a half, and there's 1,100 followers. So people are very interested in what's going on with the house, and it's
Right.
it's kind of cool to watch the evolution too. But we also have a website. It's the night KNIGHT houseky.com, and we have all kind of merch over there. Cool merch. This is one of the things we have. One of the logos.
Hell yeah.
The Night House. And there's hoodies and everything else. And I've made all the merch as cheap as I can with still
Mm-hmm.
making a little bit of money.
Right.
So it's not going to cost you $50 for a hoodie or a zip up jacket. They're
Right.
like 25, 30, they're reasonable. T-shirts are like $15. And all that money for the merch on there will go toward the Night House as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're a for-profit business, but we're very serious about, keeping the house up, fixing the house up. There's a
Right.
lot more that needs to be done to preserve the house. There's a lot of wood that needs to be replaced that's rotted and things like that.
Right.
So, but also I have the restoration pages on there, and then also when we ever get it opened up to the public and to the paranormal, the website is the place to go to see all that and book all that stuff.
Hell yeah. Well, Eric, like I said, I've been impressed with like you and your husband and all your people. It's been helping. He's been doing, and I look forward to coming up there here in a couple of months and checking the place out. And who knows, I may just come up there one day, like when I know you may be up there, because it's not that far, just to
Yeah,
kind of check
yeah.
the place out beforehand. Or I may just decide to keep it fresh.
Keep
And
it a surprise.
so,
Yeah.
all right, everybody. Eric, thanks again for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody, go listen to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Pretty much everywhere you get your podcast or music from. Check out the Night House when he gets it open. Be sure you get up there and check it out, whether it's just a daytime walkthrough tour or an investigation. I'm sure you're going to love it. Check out Strangely Haunted on YouTube. And all right, Eric, we'll talk to you next time, man.
Thank you, buddy. Y'all have a good day.
All right, everybody, stay spooky.